You ever try to disappear into peace, only for trouble to follow you up a mountain? That was supposed to be my escape. 1 week, no emails, no traffic. Just me, the lake, and the hum of cicadas. I'd been planning it for months, loaded up my truck with supplies, groceries, firewood, tools, a few good steaks, and enough coffee to last the apocalypse. But before I even got halfway up the gravel drive to my cabin, I saw her. Karen, HOA badge swinging from her neck like she's Homeland Security. She blocked my path. Hands on hips, chin up. The kind of confidence that can only come from years of telling kids to slow down in 25 miles per hour zones. You can't park here, she snapped. I told her I wasn't parking. I was hauling provisions to my private property. Then she did something wild. She peeked into my truck bed, pointed at my supplies, and said, "These aren't yours." I laughed. She didn't. Next thing I know, sirens. 2 squad cars rolling up the hill like I just robbed a grocery store. And the kicker? Karen was holding one of my steaks like it was Exhibit A. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came when the cops actually listened to her. I knew I had to play this smart, because what Karen didn't know is that this cabin wasn't just my getaway. It was my trap. Let me rewind. The cabin had been in my family for 3 generations. It sat just outside the boundary of a neighborhood that had slowly metastasized into a gated lake community. At first it was cute. Families, barbecues, folks waving as they paddleboarded. Then came the HOA. They annexed everything they could. Rules, fines, restrictions. They grew like mold. But our cabin, grandfathered in, technically outside their jurisdiction. Technically mine. Karen moved in 2 years ago. Former real estate agent. Current self-appointed neighborhood sheriff. She didn't like that my property didn't play by the rules. No dues, no approval needed for renovations, no leash laws for my golden retriever, Moose. The moment she found out, she made it her mission to bring me in line. I ignored her emails, blocked her number, brushed off her printed notices stuffed at my gate. But this time, I guess she saw me hauling provisions up the hill and decided she had the moral high ground to escalate. When the cops arrived, I expected them to laugh. But they didn't. Karen had spun a story that I was squatting, said she'd never seen me before, claimed my suspicious behavior, carrying supplies, using a back road, meant I was trying to break in. And somehow she'd convinced them she was the caretaker. I had my ID, deed, a key, but the cops said they'd need to sort this out. Karen stood there, smirking, while they asked me to step aside. I could have lost it right there, but I didn't. Because while they ran my name, I saw something in her hand, a slip of paper from my grocery bags. She'd taken more than just a steak. That was when I knew this wasn't just a nosy neighbor gone rogue. This was premeditated. And it was only the beginning. The next morning, I found my cabin padlocked. A fluorescent HOA notice zip-tied to the gate. Pending ownership dispute, do not enter. I called the sheriff. He shrugged it off, said it was complicated. Karen was already holding meetings, claiming the property was abandoned and should be reclaimed for community use. She even told my neighbor Jeff that they might turn it into a nature education center. Jeff, bless him, called me and said, "Man, I think this woman just declared war on your whole family." I didn't argue, because Jeff was right. But I wasn't going to fight fire with fire. I was going to fight it with paperwork, patience, and one hell of a surprise. And trust me, Karen had no idea what was coming. The first fine arrived the next morning. Yes, fine. Not from a court, not from the sheriff. From Karen's printer. Folded into a plastic sleeve and nailed to a tree just inside my property line. Unauthorized storage of supplies, be $500 per day. I stared at it, baffled. Was this Monopoly money? She even added a PayPal QR code. I peeled it off and tossed it in the fire pit. Mistake. The next day, 2 more notices. One for visual clutter, aka my canoe, and one for non-compliance with architectural aesthetics. I guess my log cabin doesn't match the beige vinyl of the HOA. Then came the sabotage. One morning, I woke up to find all the provisions from my truck gone. Just gone. The stakes, the tools, the lumber I'd hauled up, vanished. Well, not vanished. Jeff texted me a photo that evening. Karen had hosted a community grilling day by the lake. Guess what was on the grill? My damn ribeye, I confronted her calmly. She smiled like a villain in a soap opera and said, "You shouldn't leave abandoned materials in a shared zone." I asked her if she was serious. She looked at me, dead in the eye, and said, "You're lucky I didn't report you for littering." She turned and walked away, wearing my hoodie, the one from the truck. I could have exploded, but again, I didn't. Because while she played checkers, I was playing chess. I started documenting everything. Photos, video, timestamped logs, even drone footage from Jeff's son, who thought it was cool surveillance practice. Then came the vote. Karen announced at an HOA meeting, recorded by another neighbor, thankfully, that she was holding a vote to absorb the orphan property into the neighborhood trust. A vote like this was some land grab episode of Game of Thrones. She even started walking around with blueprints. She told neighbors she had plans for my cabin, a shared guest lodge, a craft workshop, or, if funding allowed, a meditation retreat. Meanwhile, I got an official notice from the county. Someone had filed a dispute of ownership. Guess who? Now, I'll admit, there was a gap in my paperwork. The cabin was old. The transfer of title from my grandfather to me wasn't digitized. That's all she needed to delay things. Delay gave her power. That week, I wasn't allowed on my own land, while ownership was under investigation. Karen went full dictator. She put up private HOA property signs, locked the road, and had the audacity to hand Jeff a bill for community path maintenance for the trail leading to my cabin. Neighbors were confused, but they weren't stupid. Some started whispering. Karen wasn't just being annoying anymore. She was scaring people. Especially when she ordered Jeff's kids off the lake for unauthorized kayak activity. She slapped a $150 fine on his mailbox. That's when people started turning. Jeff talked, others followed. Turns out she'd been bending rules long before I showed up. Unapproved surveillance cams, a shed project that mysteriously got approved without a vote, a personal Amazon locker installed near the mailbox cluster. The mask was slipping. But I needed one more thing. I needed proof that she lied about the cabin ownership and used her position to gain personally. Then, the break came. Remember that steak party? One of the neighbors uploaded a photo to Facebook. Right there, center table, my tool set. Unmistakable, monogrammed. I printed it, stamped it, attached it to the formal complaint I'd been preparing for 2 weeks, and submitted it directly to the county property board and to a local news station's small town injustice segment. They loved it. The reporter called it the HOA hijack. 2 days later, I got a call. The county clerk's office confirmed it. The title transfer had been accepted and updated. I was officially, undeniably, publicly, the legal owner. I looked at the lake that morning, still and quiet. Then I smiled, because it was time to flip the board. With the ownership officially in my name, the chains came off literally. I cut the padlock off my gate, walked straight into my cabin, and reclaimed every inch. The first thing I did? Hung a sign, in bold black letters on reclaimed wood. Private property trespassers will be filmed and featured. Then I placed a second one right below it. HOA, hands off my hill. I could hear Karen shrieking from down the path before she even arrived. She marched up, iPad in hand, recording like she was the director of a low-budget legal drama. "You're violating community guidelines," she screamed. I calmly pointed to the surveyor's tape I'd placed days earlier. "Karen, you're standing on my land. I had it resurveyed last week. Want to see the drone footage?" She blinked, then froze. Because the drone was hovering above us, Jeff's kid was piloting it again, just for fun. I told her I had footage of her entering my cabin while the title was in dispute, throwing away my supplies and parading my belongings around like they were hers. She turned red, then white, then that weird shade of beige. I wasn't done. I sent a certified cease and desist to the HOA board, copied to every resident. In it, I outlined the following. 1. Illegal seizure of private property. 2. False reporting to law enforcement. 3. Misuse of HOA funds for personal events. Hello, steak party. 4. Voter fraud over unrecognized land jurisdiction. Then came the cherry on top. Remember the vote she orchestrated? Well, Karen never filed the minutes, never officially documented participation, and several neighbors claimed they never voted at all. Turns out it was never real. But I made it real. I hosted a community truth night right on my front lawn. I projected her HOA speeches, the Facebook photo of my stolen gear, and even clips of her denying she knew me while wearing my hoodie. Neighbors gasped. Some laughed. Jeff brought popcorn. When it ended, I stood up and said, I don't want war. I want peace. But peace requires boundaries. I held up the updated deed. This is mine, and trespass will not be tolerated. I paused. But if you leave me alone, I'll waive any legal action. A silence fell, then applause. Even the HOA treasurer clapped. Karen stormed off, face pale, muttering about lawyers. She never showed up to another HOA meeting again. 2 weeks later, a notice was posted to the neighborhood board. Karen has voluntarily stepped down from her position as HOA president, citing health reasons and time constraints. Translation: she was done. But I wasn't done yet. I installed new motion lights, upgraded the security cams, and added a final sign just for good measure. Lakeview Cabin Private Retreat, not subject to HOA, but we do accept apologies. And to be honest, a few have come. One of Karen's old allies even brought me bourbon and said, sorry we let her get that far. I poured him a glass. Because justice tastes better when it's aged, served cold, and with a lake view. A week after Karen disappeared from HOA leadership, the county clerk's office called again. Turns out my formal complaint, combined with the video evidence and local news attention, had triggered a deeper look into Karen's activities. She wasn't just a nuisance. She was sloppy. She'd been collecting administrative fees without HOA board approval, rerouting reimbursements to a private account, and submitting false maintenance invoices. I was invited to a special community meeting, this time held at the town hall, not her deck. The county investigator laid it all out, slide by slide. Bank transfers, fake votes, even footage of Karen unlocking my gate with bolt cutters, clear trespassing. In broad daylight. I wish you could have seen the board's faces. Mouths open, hands shaking. One woman gasped, she stole from all of us? Yep, the HOA was fine. Karen? She got hit with a restitution order for over $18,000 and was banned from holding any community position again. But here's where it gets really poetic. Karen had recently refinanced her home to pay for a wellness patio extension, one of those things she tried to zone as community use. Now, with legal costs and the order hanging over her, she had no choice but to list her house. Fast. You guessed it. I bought it. Through a shell LLC. Quietly, cleanly, no drama. 2 months later, I walked into her old kitchen, smiled at the fresh paint, and left a housewarming gift on the counter. A welcome to the neighborhood doormat. Upside down. Oh, and that hoodie she stole? I found it stuffed in a drawer during the walkthrough. I hung it in my cabin, right above the fireplace. A little souvenir from the time the HOA tried to steal my mountain, and I took back everything. And then some. I came up to the cabin looking for peace, and got war. But looking back, I'm glad it happened. Because Karen didn't just try to steal my supplies, my land, and my time. She tried to rewrite the rules to benefit herself. And that's what makes stories like this matter. HOAs can do good. But when someone like Karen gets control, it becomes less about community and more about control, ego, and power. She didn't just want rules, she wanted a kingdom, and anyone not bowing was a threat. But here's the thing about paper crowns. They don't survive a good rainstorm. And mine came with receipts. Now when I sit by the lake, coffee in hand, moose at my feet, I don't just feel peace. I feel earned peace. Because I stood up. Because I played the long game. Because I didn't just take back what was mine. I reminded everyone watching that quiet doesn't mean weak. So if you ever feel cornered by clipboard tyrants or petty power holders, remember, there's always a way to flip the board. You just have to be calm, patient, and just a little bit smarter. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done if Karen stole your supplies and tried to hijack your property? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you made it to the end of this wild ride, comment. Justice served, so I know you're part of the squad who sees through the Karens of the world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a reminder. Respect is earned, property is owned, and steak should never be stolen. See you at the lake. Yo.